Hello everyone, my name is Rohit and thanks for having patience. We're just going to start the webinar on in Doers We Trust, top tips for scaling for your freelancer business, and pretty excited to have all of you. Uh, Before we begin, I would like to thank you for taking time out on a weekend evening and being here with us. I can guarantee you that we have some exciting speakers come up through the next few minutes as we go along, and for all those entrepreneurs, probably something which should be very useful to go back and take to your businesses. So the way we're going to structure the webinar is we'll have Brent Messenger from Fiverr talk first about tips on how to use the platform, how to use the marketplace, how to position yourself, and he'll offer some tips and tricks on how to make the best use of the resources that you have. Followed with Miguel Warren from the Payoneer team, who will talk about how to improve your payments that come from global customers and how to overcome some challenges, how Payoneer can be your partner along with Fiverr in making that happen for you, right? Let me quickly take a minute to introduce Brent before I hand over the session to him. Brent Messenger, and I'll take the liberty of calling him Brent, works as a global head of community at Fiverr, which is the world's largest or leading marketplace for digital services. He has previously worked as a battleground state field director for Obama for America in 2008, which I think was recognized as the most forward-thinking community-focused program in history. He also joined Obama campaign after that with a consultancy 270 strategies company to take it forward. The most interesting part about him, what I read up, was that he's also an entrepreneur, and probably while you converse with him, while you discuss with him in this workshop, you'll realize that his tips and his tricks and his guidance to you will be coming straight from a entrepreneur's mindset. So I'm pretty thrilled to have Brent, and over to Brent to take over the session from here on to talk about how freelancers and how entrepreneurs can really use Fiverr to take their businesses to the next level. Over to Brent.
Thank you, Rohit. And thank you all for joining. Yes, so the big picture you see on the screen is my face. It's 6 a.m. here in San Francisco where I live, so I probably don't look quite that put together, but that is me. As Rohit mentioned, I work for Fiverr, and Fiverr is the largest freelance marketplace in the world. 193 countries are participating in the marketplace. There's a transaction every 3.5 seconds. So there's a lot going on Fiverr. But I'm going to talk to you today about things that are true on Fiverr, but also true on other freelance marketplaces. So I'll try to keep this as generic as possible. The things I want to cover, just quickly, I want to cover how to build your profile and tell you some things that I think will help you get started. A lot of what we're going to talk about today is sort of the basics. I think a lot of people think about how they can make their fortune on a freelance marketplace, and that's certainly possible on Fiverr. We have people making, we have someone who's made over $1 million US at this point. So it's certainly possible, but it doesn't happen unless you start with the basics and sort of get through the early stage and get noticed. So we'll start with talking about building a profile. From there, we'll talk about communicating, just some strategies for communicating with buyers, talk about delivering, coming up with a simple checklist for making sure that you're doing everything you need to do to get a good review, which is what we'll talk about in part 4. And then after that, we'll talk about getting featured, which is something everybody wants on a freelance marketplace, is to be the profile or the gig that gets featured. And then from there, I will make another quick and shameless plug for joining Fiverr, and I'll make that very fast. So part 1, this handsome gentleman is not me. This is a community member of ours. So the first thing you need to do in a freelance marketplace is make a good impression. I chose these images here because on Fiverr, you have to have the first thing someone will see is a gig. Before they get to your profile, they'll actually see the service that you're offering. And I chose these services because I think they're very representative. They're good images, and they're representative of the work that's being done. In the first example, you have they say they'll create a vintage logo. You can see a very nice vintage logo there, which would probably be appropriate for a bike shop, it looks like. The next one over, I think, is a really tricky example. People that do voiceover often don't know what to use for their gigs as an image. They put microphones, they put pop screens and studio images and things like that. In this case, this gentleman chose to use a picture of himself. He says he has an urban voice. He is an African-American gentleman, handsome guy, beautifully shot picture, and I think it captures really well what he's selling. The last one, this person says they'll do a WordPress or WooCommerce store. So they're building an e-commerce site. That's what they're showing. It's not, pictures of hands on a keyboard. It's not pictures of computers. It's not something inappropriate to what's being sold. It is the actual thing that's being sold. So I just kind of wanted to start at that point. You'd be amazed at how many gigs on Fiverr don't have an optimal picture to illustrate the gig. Moving into the profile, you want to take time to sell yourself. You want to do it honestly and accurately, and you want to make sure the description's 100% complete, including your relevant experiences and certifications. The people that create freelance marketplaces, Fiverr, Upwork, others, they have created a profile and made available to you areas for you to express yourself, to talk about your expertise, to share experience, and they know that this is what buyers want to see. I'm amazed sometimes that buyers, people who are setting up a profile, sellers, people who are setting up a profile on Fiverr don't complete it. They leave things blank. They just sort of skip over areas. They take shortcuts. It doesn't take too long to do this, but it is super important that you do all these things. As you can see, the person I've highlighted here, his name's Aliyaan. He is from Pakistan. He's had 18,000 gigs, and he has a 5-star rating. He's about as good as anyone you'll find on Fiverr. So tell your story. In the same space, you have an opportunity to talk about what you do in the description. And again, all freelance marketplaces have a profile that allows you to describe yourself. Credentials are very good. You want to tell people what you've done, what your expertise is. If you have any certifications, you certainly want to share those. But don't be afraid to put a little bit of your personality into it as well. This person here, Woofy31, he loves what he does, but he's also known for being kind and friendly, which is easy to say, but it's also nice to see, especially when he goes on to say that he responds quickly because he spends 15 hours a day working on Fiverr to support his family. All things being equal, if I see two people that do SEO or software development or WordPress, and one has a 5-star rating and the other has a 5-star rating, but one of them says, he's really responsive because he's busy taking care of his family, I would likely choose that one. It would resonate with me on a personal level. So use the opportunity to put a little bit of your personality in there. It pays to be honest. Now, this is a really important point on Fiverr. Location and language proficiency matter. Some people on Fiverr, when they're setting up a profile, and I know, again, this is also true on other freelance marketplaces, they will sometimes say they're in a different location, or they will sometimes say they have language proficiency that they don't have. This really sets you up for failure in a lot of ways. When someone says they have English proficiency or Spanish proficiency or whatever the language is that they don't have, and then they go to have an interaction with that person and they find out that it's not as good as they alleged, it actually, it does damage to them. It damages their reputation. It almost always leads to a lower review, and it's just generally problematic. So it's best to say where you're located. It will explain a lot about your response times, and if you say you're fluent in the language, be fluent in that language. If you're not, you can certainly say that as well. Another quick note on this is that there are actually buyers on the marketplace that are looking for people with expertise in your language, specific fluency in your language, and also people who have a knowledge of where you live. And there will be projects like that that have to do with research or that have to do with writing and things like that. So if those are the types of gigs you're doing, it's even more important. This is just one where I wanted to call out this in particular because this is Aliyaan. Again, he's in Pakistan. He is fluent in English, and he's very truthful about where he is. He also, I meant to point out in that previous slide that he says he only communicates in English, which is, it's risky in some ways, but unless he's perfectly fluent, which he is. So you see his reviews are all like this, that he was quick, that he did what he said he was going to do, and he did it right. He made a minor revision when he was asked to, and that they'll come back for more. Again, he has thousands of these. This is my favorite slide. Show them the real you. So your profile picture should be unique and real, and you should never use just images you grab off the web or that could potentially be copywritten. That could be a problem that could actually get you banned from a freelance marketplace. Professional headshots have been proven to do well. A lot of sellers on Fiverr, and I'm really, again, this is one of those things that sort of surprises me. They don't use pictures themselves. They choose to use other images, which can be fine, but a lot of times those images don't say anything about the person, or they just look unprofessional. One thing that's really important to notice about all these slides is that all these people are smiling. They're not all professionally shot headshots. Some of them look like selfies, but they are all smiling. And we've actually been able to prove that in profiles where people use headshots and the people are smiling, they sell more. It's kind of amazing. A little bit of evidence of how headshots can work. Kissmetrics, which is an A/B testing software, online A/B testing software, they did some tests for an online art store that shows paintings. And what they decided to do was, instead of showing the paintings, to show the artist. So they swapped out the photos of the paintings for the artist's headshots, and they found that it increased conversion by 95%. That is just an astronomical result. And I think, it sort of puts to bed once and for all whether or not an avatar or another image is better for selling art, at least. And on our site, that really bears out across categories. So if you're building a freelance profile, definitely think about using your own picture and smile. This is just a note on pictures. The people here on the right are not smiling, which is fine. But the picture, the phrase is a picture tells 1,000 words. And in this case, we're saying that the headshot should be focused and clear, and the background should not distract from you. You're the most important thing. So if at all possible, a plain background is a good way to go. A tight shot of your face is a good way to go. Okay. So we're moving on to communicating now. This section, it assumes you got a gig. You had a profile up, you followed all the rules and suggestions that I gave you, and sure enough, someone clicked buy. So now the clock is ticking for you. You need to move quickly when you get a gig. And again, this is true on all freelance marketplaces. And in fact, all gig economy marketplaces, Airbnb and others, they kind of work the same way on some of these core metrics. Response rates matter. So you want to respond to everyone. Some people don't. They get a gig that doesn't look, or an offer that doesn't look good to them, and they just choose not to follow through on it, and the person withdraws the offer and they leave. That actually does damage to your search ranking. So in this case, we say that 98%, top sellers have a 98% response rate. Sometimes things happen and you can't, it makes an offer to you in the middle of the night. You wake up the next morning, they've rescinded it. There's nothing you can do about that. But in general, you want to respond as quickly as you can. Which brings me to point 2. Top sellers on Fiverr, the very top sellers, they have response times of 2 hours. To be honest with you, I'm not sure how they do it, because I go to sleep at night and I usually sleep for 6 or 7 hours. But these people have probably figured out the cadence for how the people who buy their services operate. Maybe the hours, maybe they've determined that they're getting more sales from certain time zones, and they're then inclined to get up and make sure they're responsive. So a tip, respond as quickly as you can. Third, make sure you understand what they're asking. I think it's a human instinct to sort of say, yeah, I understand, and move on. Yeah, I get it, and just move on to execution. But in the case of these freelance gigs, it pays to over communicate and to really find out what it is they want before you start working. And then 4, state your intentions. If you're going to accept a gig, you should let the buyer know. On Fiverr, people have the ability to just accept a gig with a click of a button, but it also makes sense and is effective to send them a personal note that says, I saw the gig, I've accepted the gig, I'm looking forward to working with you. And if you're very savvy, you can actually send them a list of questions right in that moment, going back to sort of number 3, understanding what they want. This I just pulled out as a kind of an interesting example of what I was talking about. This person says, hey, the person who's buying this service from Illustrator says, I'm working on a graphic novel entitled The Rise of Zeus, and she goes on to talk a little bit about what she would like for the project in terms of style. The artist responds, very friendly, congratulations on your book, and then she goes on to sort of ask questions, pretty detailed questions. Who are the members of the family? What's the timeline? What happens on a certain day? And she sort of goes into, she has found some of this person, a person's website, just to kind of paint between the lines here. She's found this person's website, and understands the project. So is asking some relevant questions. This is a seller who has a lot of very strong reviews. So she knows what she's doing. So the overarching point here is that communication is king. The one thing we see is that most gigs that fail due to poor communication. They don't fail because people don't have the services. They don't fail exclusively because people can't speak the language, or because they say they're not in the location they are, or any of the other things that we've talked about. Most of those problems could be alleviated with good communication. Proper communication up front and proper communication throughout. So my advice is to keep lines of communication open. Let the buyer know when you plan to complete their project. If you're working in phases, if you're saying, I'm going to do the first part of this week, I'm going to do the next part of it next week, keep the buyer updated. Let them know you're working in phases. Tell them when you'll check in, and then check in when you say you will. And if you're not 100% clear about what's needed, you need to ask, which is what I was saying earlier. And then lastly, and this one I think is really missing for a lot of people from their approach to freelance work online, is practice empathy. Think about what it might be like to put your hard-earned money on the line to pay a freelancer you've never met, that you've never seen, and ask them to do something, and in a lot of cases is a project that's very close to your heart. Many of the people on Fiverr are solo entrepreneurs, small business people, and this is their business. If they're asking you to design their logo, this is their passion. They may have quit their job to go build this business, and they're entrusting you to help create them a logo that really speaks to what they're doing. So practice empathy. Try to put yourself in their shoes. Also, I've mentioned this before, but speak the agreed upon language. If language is a challenge, you can just say it. Ignoring these issues, though, or trying to hide them, it always ends poorly. Also, we found that people that are upfront about a language challenge, they sometimes say, I'm going to use emojis to help clarify, and it's really effective, actually. It does quite well. So, there are certain categories where people communicate with more emojis than others, but it's really quite effective. And then remember that joking online in written form, in sort of the chat that happens inside a freelance marketplace app, it's difficult. It's difficult to joke. So try not to do that until you have a bit of rapport and you feel comfortable doing that, because we've seen many gigs take a wrong turn because a seller makes a joke that's misinterpreted. So be careful of that. Also, stay inside the platform for the communication. For your safety, you don't want to give buyers your personal contact information. Certainly when you're first getting to know them, that is true. That's just common sense. But also, and this is really the more important point, keeping conversations inside the platforms helps the company that runs the marketplace resolve disputes. When it's all laid out there in black and white, it's easy to see where things went wrong and to intervene and help. Part 3, delivering. This section is very short. It's just a simple checklist. And the point I want to make here and just sort of hopefully make stick in your mind is that every buyer expects an amazing experience, whether they paid $5 or $300. It's an interesting phenomenon. You think, okay, someone pays $5 for something or $10 for something, and maybe where they live in the U.S., New York City or Los Angeles or San Francisco, you think, oh, $10 is probably not that much. But once someone's made the decision to purchase, the thinking about the money, how much it costs, kind of goes away. What they want is what they asked for. So incredibly, and people are expecting perfection, really, for a low price point. So you have to do your best to try to deliver it for them, within the terms, within the scope of what you agreed to. So the way you do that is to commit to the deadlines, set deadlines, commit to them, meet them, deliver what's promised, and that means in accordance with the terms of the gig. You don't have to over-deliver. You don't have to give them something they didn't pay for, but make sure that you're meeting the sort of core requirements of the project. Do the best work you're capable of as a person. My assumption, everyone, we're assuming best intentions here, that anyone who signs up to do this work is capable of doing it. So do the best work you're capable of, and again, be honest in the creation of the gig and in your profile what your level of expertise is. And lastly, if you feel like you've set a price that's too low, set a higher price next time. But you can't use a low price as an excuse not to deliver your best quality work. That's pretty intuitive, but I also think it's human nature to think, well, geez, this person's not paying me to go the extra mile, or, I'm not spending more than, this little bit of time on it because they're only paying you this much. And I think that a lot of that makes sense, and you'll sort of find your sweet spot with that. But it's also true that if you want to build a successful freelance career on a freelance marketplace, that you need to keep people happy. So especially in the beginning, do the absolute best you can do. This is an example I just pulled out again of someone who got amazing work. They got exactly what they expected, and they were extremely excited about it. This person, I believe, paid $20 for some illustrations. And it's very personal. You can tell that these people know each other. The illustrations, she was just extremely excited to get these. Actually, this was the woman who wrote the book in the previous example. So this is a passion of hers. She's very excited about this book, and she was excited that the illustrations were what she wanted. So this is a happy customer. I know the person who did the illustrations did a lot of work to get this there, but it's obviously paying off. Reviews. We've talked a bit about them already. So here's the thing. Buyers don't automatically give reviews. They are not required to offer a review. You need to get reviews, and you need to ask. They definitely will help you improve your work, and they will certainly help you grow your business. People look at the reviews. In this example here, I've showed you a person has 1,568 five-star reviews, which is just unbelievable. This is a very accomplished seller on the Fiverr marketplace. And you see, even in the review process, this person is engaged. Excellent service, the person says, and she responds, thank you very much. It was a pleasure working with you. That, to me, if I'm shopping for a service, I see a review like that. I see someone who's giving a glowing review of the service, and then even the seller engaging in positive feedback, I'm sold. So that's an easy trick to be responsive even to good feedback. How you ask for this feedback matters. So we advise people to reinforce their professionalism when they're asking. If someone hasn't posted a review of their service, you just say, you send them an email or a message through the app, and you say, I noticed you haven't posted a review of my service. I want to make sure that I delivered as you expected and that you're 100% happy. Fiverr is going to close this gig after 3 days. So I want to make sure that if you need me to make any changes, that I have an opportunity to do that for you because I want you to be completely satisfied. And then just say at the end, your positive review will help me grow my business. those reviews, again, are imperative, so you want to make sure you get them. They're almost like part of your payment. You collected your fee for service. Now you want the review, which is really what's going to help you grow more than the payment. Why does that approach work? Well, the message is informative. It tells them that you're not solely focused on getting a positive review, but that you do need one. And it gives them an opportunity to fix things. So you're educating them and telling them that you want them to be satisfied. So it'll resonate with them on a practical level regarding their gig, but it'll also resonate with them on an emotional level. And if you don't get a response, just move on. You can't really force someone to give a positive review for you. So what happens if you get negative feedback? Well, most platforms, Fiverr and others, do allow buyers to rescind or at least update their feedback. So if you get negative feedback, take a deep breath, try not to get angry, and sort of lean into the problem and see if you can fix it. I've suggested a message here that says, I'm sorry you're not satisfied with the work. We agreed on the following. Here's what I did to do that. I'd appreciate an opportunity to make it right, and ask them, if you're not amenable to this, just let me know what I can do in the future and I'll do that. You want to just let them be if they're not interested in doing that. Again, this works because the message uses facts, not emotions. It shows that you want to learn, and it can't be taken as inappropriate. You're not angry, you're not belligerent, because those things will actually get you banned from a freelance platform. So it's good to have this sort of canned response in your back pocket. So this is very simple. Awesome experiences equal repeat buyers equals more money. It's hard to earn positive reviews if you don't deserve them. Our top sellers maintain a rating of 98% or higher. That means they've got four plus stars, between 4 and 5 stars. If a buyer's unhappy, don't ignore it. What they're trying to tell you, you should learn from it. You need to adopt a customer is always right attitude to the best of your ability. And remember, you can't force a positive review out of someone. So getting featured, and I'll go through this quickly. Really important points here. Everybody wants to be featured. You can't beat the algorithm, which are the things that I talked about earlier: delivery rate, the quality of your work, your communication, and the things that lead to reviews, being on deadline, delivering on time, cancellations, all those things. If you can control those things, but you can't beat the algorithm. There's no way to game it. So if you deliver high quality work, you're on time, people are happy, then you're going to do well. If you're not doing those things, then you're not going to do well. But there's also an additional thing you can do, which is to get the attention of people behind the scenes like myself. Participate in community activities, host your own community events, and get active on the marketplace's social channels. So again, just to be clear on this, do all the good things that we talked about earlier that will help the algorithm recognize that you're a quality seller, but also do the other things that will allow humans behind the scene to highlight you, because that happens. Every freelance marketplace has the ability to handpick sellers and gigs that they want to give exposure to in a certain category or a certain market. So it pays to play the game. Lastly, before I pass it over, I just want to make a shameless plug. We are Fiverr, and we want you to join our marketplace. We're growing every day. An interesting fact is that there is more demand for services on Fiverr than we have supply. There are more people looking for the things that you're capable of doing than we can provide to them. So if you're a high quality seller, you want to come on the marketplace, you're interested in doing the things I've talked about to build a business, we would love to have you. So we also have people, tools, and resources dedicated to helping you succeed. So join Fiverr and do the things I suggested. Get active on our social channels, join the community, all those good things, and you'll have success. And that's it. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brent, for the intense feedback as well as the insights. And while you were talking, I just took the liberty of capturing some of the things that you said, which I found very useful. I'm just going to use them to, kind of paraphrase and summarize. I hope that's okay with you. What I specifically liked is a few points. I think the one that kind of got me completely into it was attract your clients with honesty. That's something was very, very important that I took note of. The contextual representation of both yourself and your capabilities is something which I liked a lot. And I like the personalization and empathy bit, and the overall bias for action that you expect the entrepreneur to show. So these are some of the things which I took note of while Brent was presenting, and I thought the overall presentation was pretty succinct. At the same time, the tips and tricks and the insights were very, very deep. So thanks, Brent, once more for being here for us and for the entrepreneurs and sharing your thoughts and continuing the spirit of entrepreneurship that Fiverr as a platform is known for. So thanks once again. Our next speaker is Miguel Warren, and he is the country manager for Payoneer in Philippines. And I'm going to hand over to him to do a quick round of introduction of himself, and then walk us through the payment part of the ecosystem. Over to you, Miguel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rohit. And once again, thanks as well to Brent for your very informative and insightful presentation. I also thought that it was very, very good stuff. So hi, everyone. This is Miguel from Payoneer. As Rohit mentioned, I am the country manager in the Philippines. And for my session, I'll start by stepping back and exploring the billion-dollar entrepreneurship opportunity called freelancing or online outsourcing. I'll also talk about the challenges of getting paid by international clients. And finally, how Payoneer can help you with your freelance business. So because of the internet, it's never been easier to find or be found by potential customers. As the world becomes more connected and technology enabled, a new breed of entrepreneur, the digital entrepreneur, is finding great success serving customers all over the world. And the fastest growth in internet connectivity and the adoption of these new technologies and new platforms is, as you know, coming from developing countries, where literally billions of people and millions of businesses are starting to get connected to the rest of the world and are eager to start trading with new partners in new places. So what I'm trying to say here is that there's never been a better time to go global. According to a recent study done by the World Bank Group, online outsourcing, which is the contracting of third-party services and or workers to supply services to perform tasks by internet-based marketplaces or platforms, this industry, market, whatever you call it, will grow to $20 billion in revenue by 2020. And countries like India and the Philippines are well positioned to take advantage of this opportunity. Both are actually in the top 5 countries of online outsourcing workers and service providers worldwide. So here's a snapshot of some of the hottest and most in-demand skills in 2017. This is based, I think, on a recent article from Forbes. As you can see, businesses are looking for everything from technical services like MySQL programming and information security to sales and marketing related skills like content writing, blogging, social media management. Whether you are an expert or a newbie in any of these fields or you have some level of skill, there's no shortage of demand for online outsourcing. As Brent mentioned earlier, there are actually more jobs than freelancers on the platform. So you owe it to yourself to start exploring these options today. And with so much opportunity in global online business, understanding cross-border payments is absolutely critical in helping professionals and businesses send and receive funds from clients in different countries. Because these clients, they could be paying with different currencies, they might be a business or an individual entrepreneur, And so cross-border payments, when you think about it, it's really about connecting countries, currencies, businesses, and professionals with other businesses, sellers, and freelancers globally. So here's an interesting anecdote. Believe it or not, in the early days of e-commerce, the check was the method by which most buyers and sellers transacted. When eBay first started in the mid-1990s, payments for transactions would actually revolve around the mailing of paper checks between buyers and sellers. And incredibly, even today, some businesses still rely on checks to get paid by international clients. But as I'm sure you know, this is not a very efficient process by which to receive cross-border payments. It takes time for checks to be mailed from one country to another. In the process, checks can get lost, they can get stolen, or they can even get damaged. And once a check is received, it will need to go through an international clearing process, which can sometimes take weeks, meaning that you will have to wait a long time to access your funds. And in today's increasingly digital world, the check is not the best method to transact internationally. And, as such, that's why most businesses today, they typically utilize international wire transfers to get paid by foreign clients. And, this works reasonably well when you're transacting with a big global bank like a Citibank or a HSBC. But if you're a small business and your bank is a local bank that doesn't have a direct relationship with other international financial institutions, it'll have to rely on what's called a correspondent bank. Basically, your buyer's bank and your bank may need to go to a different bank, a correspondent bank, who will then execute and receive the international transfer. This is a multi-step process, and each step typically has an associated fee, anywhere from $20 to sometimes $70, plus a 1 to 5% foreign exchange markup. And so as you can see in this slide, where up to 4 different banks and 2 different local payment systems may be involved in the transaction, more layers and more parties participating mean a greater potential for fund clearing delays, additional fees, and additional foreign exchange markup. So debit and credit cards and remittance companies are typically an alternative to traditional cross-border payments. In the Philippines, I know that this is definitely the case. These options provide convenience, and this makes them a very popular option for online payment. But for sellers who have experienced a merchant accreditation process, they know that this can be very cumbersome. The bank or the acquirer will ask you for a lot of information. Why? Because Visa and MasterCard and the payment schemes want to be sure that you are not going to do anything funny with the very sensitive credit card and debit card information that you're going to be dealing with. The payment amounts typically as well for cards are typically very low, and foreign exchange rates are typically not good. And this is the same case for remittance service companies. They provide conveniences such as cash pickup, cash delivery, and they have many points of presence. But payment thresholds are typically quite low and the fees very high, which really makes them difficult for a growing international business or a freelancer that's starting to see some traction to utilize. These options are typically much better suited to personal remittances. So, in summary, there are many challenges associated with traditional cross-border payments. Cross-border payments are actually oftentimes a big hurdle for small businesses and freelance professionals. As mentioned, the process can take time depending on how many different banks are involved. There's oftentimes a lack of transparency in currency conversion, which means it's difficult to see what exactly the rates are and how much you actually got for the dollars you earned. When banks are transacting with each other and the amounts are high, they will typically ask for documentation to ensure compliance to KYC or know your customer. And so a lot of paperwork often changes hands before the funds are released. And once the funds are actually available, oftentimes there are a limited number of ways that they can be accessed. And so the end result is more cost and time lost. And this is really where Payoneer can help you. Based out of New York, we operate a cross-border business-to-business payments platform that enables businesses and professionals to grow globally by facilitating seamless international transactions. We have users in over 200 countries. We have more than 150 different currencies and work with thousands of leading brands. Our financial partners include the likes of Deutsche Bank, Bank of America, and MasterCard. And we also do business with Amazon, Airbnb, and Fiverr. One of Payoneer's key strengths is the global regulatory and compliance framework that we've built. We are regulated as a money services business in the US. We're an e-money license holder in Europe, an MSO in Hong Kong, a registered MSB in Japan, and in India, we're an online payment gateway provider. Payoneer is also PCI DSS compliant, which means that we adhere to all the data security standards of the payment card industry, and basically all transactions are processed over a secure bank-grade network. We invest, and we continue to invest a lot to ensure that we are a trustworthy payment partner to our users and our business partners worldwide. So we are incredibly excited about partnering with Fiverr to allow freelance professionals and small businesses to easily manage their payouts from the platform. Using the Fiverr revenue card or the bank transfer options that are available in your revenues dashboard in Fiverr, you can utilize Payoneer to access your funds easily and conveniently in your local currency. So when you click the Fiverr revenue card option or the bank transfer option for the first time, you'll typically receive an email from Fiverr which will ask you to confirm that you would like to continue with the process. And if you're okay to proceed, just click on the link in the email and it will take you to a landing page that will guide you through the next steps. And that landing page looks a little bit like this. So if you chose the Fiverr revenue card option, the landing page will show you an overview of the features and the benefits of the Fiverr revenue card. This card, which is supported by Payoneer and powered by MasterCard, will allow you to conveniently withdraw your Fiverr earnings in any ATM worldwide that supports MasterCard. And you can also use it to make purchases online or in stores. So once you're ready, just click on the green Get Started button and you'll be redirected to a Payoneer Fiverr card registration page. And if you're already a Payoneer user, simply click on the Already Have a Payoneer Account and follow the instructions to link your existing account to Fiverr. Now, if you choose the bank transfer option, you don't want a card and you prefer to get paid direct to your local bank, the process is going to be exactly the same. You'll be taken to a landing page where you can click on the green Get Started button, and once you do that, you'll be redirected to a Payoneer sign-up page. And again, if you are already a Payoneer user, there will be an option there to add your existing account details and link them to Fiverr. For freelancers and businesses in India, the Fiverr revenue card option is currently unavailable. However, you can still utilize Payoneer for your payouts by clicking on the bank transfer option in your revenue dashboard and receive the funds in INR in your local bank. But what's in it for you? Why choose Payoneer? Aside from our investment in building a robust and trustworthy payment platform, we also offer lower fees and a higher foreign exchange rate. So last year, a company called Let's Talk Payments released a report entitled Unveiling the True Cost of Cross-Border B2B Payments. The India version of this report, and this table on this slide shows an excerpt from that report, showed that Payoneer was found to be the most cost-effective option amongst 3 different scenarios that were tested. Payoneer delivered the most INR to the India-based freelancer. A Philippine version of this report was also released, with the same conclusion that Payoneer was the best option. And in this case, the scenario was that a $1,000 business payment from the US was made to the Philippines. And so if you look at that number and those three options, after fees and foreign exchange conversion, Payoneer resulted in around 2,500 pesos more than the first option. 2,500 pesos. Guys, when you think about it, that's the equivalent of about 17 premium Starbucks coffees, at least in the Philippines, right? And that's only on $1,000, right? What if it was $5,000? Guys, on $5,000, that's about 12,763 pesos, roughly the cost of a monthly car loan in the Philippines. And again, that is just on $5,000. I have many users and account holders in the Philippines that are definitely earning more than $5,000 a month from their freelance business. And so the question is, what if it's $10,000? Guys, on $10,000, that's 25,000 plus pesos, or the rough equivalent of your monthly mortgage. So if it's one thing that I wanted to leave with you today, it's the difference that your choice of cross-border payment provider can make in terms of Starbucks coffees, your monthly car loan, or even your monthly mortgage. So here are a few case studies of some successful freelancers who use Payoneer to access their payouts from Fiverr. This is actually one of the things that I love about my job, is getting to interact with these amazing people. Jodine Ochate is a young graphic designer from the Philippines who went straight from university to freelancing. She leveraged her creativity in a very specific niche and built an amazing business that pays her much more than most jobs she could get in the Philippines. Another example is JP Espino, an architect who made the decision to transition into a Fiverr freelancer. JP specializes in 3D rendering using computer-aided design tools. She also does animation services, and she loves the flexibility of being able to travel when she wants and to be able to work from literally anywhere in the world where there's an internet connection. She also runs an amazing community called Fiverr Success Philippines. They're a Facebook group. Just search them on Facebook, add them up. And she's always eager to share tips about how to earn well on the Fiverr platform. You'll find other great success stories on freelancing on the Payoneer blog, which is a great resource for content and industry tips related to online business. And there are a number of tips and tricks as well on Payoneer and how to use our service. You can also learn more about us in our community social channels, which include Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and also Twitter. Lastly, I just wanted to mention Payoneer's Refer a Friend program, which allows you to earn rewards for referring new Payoneer users. Once you've signed up to Payoneer, simply log into your account, find the Refer a Friend, Earn $25 button, and click on it. You find a link which you can then share with your friends, and once your friend registers for Payoneer and receives his first payment of $100, you will both receive $25. So if you haven't already signed up to Payoneer, please do so and start sharing your link. That's my shameless plug, just like Brent. So thank you so much, everybody. I really enjoyed my session. Back to you, Rohit.
Thank you, Miguel. And again, thanks for walking us through the details of what could be the challenges and how one can overcome those with Payoneer, and what should people look up to when they start using Payoneer to withdraw their money from Fiverr. So thank you once again, Miguel. We do have some time for questions, and please write to us if you have more questions. I'm going to take a few questions on air at this point of time. If we can't take all questions, we promise that we'll get Brent and Miguel and myself to answer them over emails to you. So please do send in your questions to us. I'll start with the first one, and this is for you, Brent. And the question is, and I'm going to say it verbatim. So the question is, my response rate is dropping 2% after a few days, and I'm not receiving any message or new orders in the last week or so. So the freelancer really wants to know what should be his plan of action to either improve his response rate and how should he come back and improve his order take rate.
Yeah, that's a great question. Without seeing the account and understanding exactly what's happened, it's a little bit hard for me to respond to that. But what I would say is, first and foremost, you can reach out to our support team and you can ask them specifically, has something changed with my profile or with my gigs, because it seems like I'm not getting as much traction. Other than that, I would say, keep on sort of keeping on. Do what you can do to improve your profile. If you do get any gigs, respond quickly, and also get active. Again, like some of the things I mentioned, getting active on the social channels and trying to join the community and things like that will help you get recognized. It sounds to me like this seller has a gig and the gig is just not getting as much attention. So again, there could be something specific that happened either with a transaction or with some change in the profile that I wouldn't be able to quite diagnose this way. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. So thanks, Brent. And the second question is also for you, Brent. So probably getting a feeling of me being a quiz master and getting you to answer this question. I promise you next time I'll get a bag of goodies, right, for all the questions and the great answers that you're going to give us, right? Again, the question is, sir, how do we keep our response rate at 100%? And it's a little funny. As you know, we are asleep, and if the message comes while sleeping, what do we do? It will definitely bring down our response rate, and how do we tackle that?
Yeah, that's one of the things I mentioned in the presentation that I think is so hard, and I completely agree with the person who asked this question. How do you do that? And I think when I was looking at the response rates that we have, and I see that some people are responding within 2 hours, I'm a little amazed myself, because I'm just not sure that I would be capable of that. But one of the things I've heard that people do is that they recognize where they're selling. If they're selling mostly to a U.S. market, they have that kind of gig. They've marketed themselves in that way. Maybe they're like Aliyaan, who only does his transactions in English. They then decide, hey, I'm going to set my alarm and I'm going to wake up and I'm going to check. I've heard of people doing that. Obviously, people will have notifications on their phones, on the app, and they have the volume up. There are things like that. It's all really a personal choice. It's about how invasive do you want this to be in your life. But I am sensitive to the fact that a lot of these requests can come in overnight, and not being responsive does impact you in the algorithm. So I would say, be as aggressive as you can be. It's certainly in the beginning. It's really important to make sure that as you're trying to get your sort of business off the ground, freelancing, that you sacrifice to get that done.
Sure. Thanks, Brent. I'm going to take a question that came up for myself, and the question is that in India, the fees for different freelance marketplaces for Payoneer payments are different, and it makes it difficult for the freelancer to decide the payment method. Can I share something on that? And just want to reassure the entrepreneurs and freelancers here that we actually have a very, very simple pricing fee rate in India. We really have only one charge that we charge anybody in India getting paid across any type of a channel globally, and that is the forex rate. This is a special rate for India because we know that India is a little different in terms of the banking infrastructure and some of the other things that are there in India. So you really pay only for foreign exchange commission. That's the rack rate is 2%. So it's a fixed fee, transparent fee at 2%, and that's what you get across the board whenever you do anything across any marketplace, right? Brent, surprisingly, there are a bunch of questions for you, so probably I'll take a couple of them more, and then probably we can do the rest of them over email. And I'll take the next one for you, which is, if I get a negative review, how do I bounce back? Will it ever cancel out, even after I've done a good job? And I just wanted to add a little bit of my own question to you, is that do you guys moderate the reviews before they are published? Because sometimes it could be a vindictive review, even if the freelancer has not really made the error. So could you share your thoughts or throw some light on that?
Yes. So in our platform, the reviews go live automatically. It is something we've talked about changing, but right now that's the way they work. So they're not moderated, but they can be withdrawn. So a seller who posts a review, if you correct the problem, they can actually withdraw the review and then reissue the review. Similarly, if you have a case where there is a vindictive review, someone has they're at fault and they're posting a negative review, you can go through our support team to have that review removed. So there are tools available to you to get those reviews right. We want to make sure, obviously, that the sellers on our marketplace aren't being damaged by vindictive reviews, and we understand how impactful they are. Reviews are incredibly important. So there are tools at your disposal. But first and foremost is the one of getting the buyer to change it. And I included some suggestions for that, which I can share with you via email if you'd like, for how to ask that question in a way that is tactful and respectful and most likely to lead to the result you want.
Thanks, Brent. The next question is also a very interesting question, and the question is, can we share our personal portfolio in the inbox so that we can show our clients our recent work, probably a trust builder of sorts, and also showcasing the spread of work and the depth of work that some freelancer has been doing. So is that possible with Fiverr? And if that's, or is there a better way to do that in your opinion?
So we're in the process of creating a way to have that happen. I can't get into too many specifics on it, but I would say in the next I would imagine by the end of June, there would likely be a way to do that. So stay tuned, and you'll keep looking for that solution, and I think you're going to be happy with what we're going to put out.
Got it. I'll take one more for you, Brent, and do let me know if I'm tiring you out. We can take a lot of questions over email too, but I thought some of these were really interesting, and I just wanted to try and bring up as much as possible so that people can understand the nuances of how to work on Fiverr or get into Payoneer. Right? The question is that why do I still get late mark on an order even if I delivered within the timeline? It did happen a few times for this particular freelancer. So A, is there something which he is not doing right, and B, is there a way that he can approach Fiverr, and is there a recourse to really help him solve some of these things if they are by error?
Yeah, so that, again, without being able to see the specifics, it's hard for me to respond to that one in particular. That shouldn't happen. I agree with that, and I think that the solution is to talk to our help team. So this seller can file a help ticket. That sounds very odd. If the gig was completed within the time that it was supposed to be, then it certainly shouldn't be marked as late. So there could be a problem, a glitch somewhere. I think it would certainly be worth investigating. But this person can file a help ticket for that, and that is exactly the kind of thing that our customer support team works on. So it should be resolvable. I certainly wouldn't leave it and do nothing about it.
Got it. Uh, and I'm just going to take maybe one or two more questions, and I'm just pushing the needle here. But and this is again an interesting question, and the question is, what is the suggested amount of or number of gigs that one should have or one should post on Fiverr, and where can they find inspiration within the network to really learn from and improve themselves as they continue their journey on the platform?
Well, I love these questions. So this one in particular, I agree. I think what the person who's asking the question is saying is, how do I know how to sort of work within the rules to become, to sort of move up? There are levels of sellers on Fiverr, and people always want to know, how do I become the next level and the next level and eventually become top rated? I'm really excited to tell you that, again, in the next month or so, we are going to make transparent what those levels are. So the question was, how many gigs do I need to do? We're going to tell you. Right now, that is not something that's public, and it all sort of, the algorithm functions in the background. The algorithm will continue to function to elevate great sellers, but we're also going to be more transparent about how many gigs you need to have and what level you need to maintain and all those things. So this is another one of those things where I think the question's being asked at a very good time. That solution is coming. As far as getting other resources, we are actually also going to be launching a community page that will have links to community organizations all around the world. So as the global head of community, I'm in charge of people who are freelancing that are out there that are joining sort of almost clubs, getting together, talking about Fiverr, talking about issues they're having, problems, best practices, tips, tricks, all those kinds of things that they're sharing. And my job is to facilitate those interactions by creating a structure and having people inside Fiverr that help facilitate. So again, stay tuned on that one, but you can also reach out to me directly. Depending on where you are, I can help put you in touch with other sellers in your community. And you can reach me at brent.m@Fiverr, or you can find me on Twitter, Brent Messenger on Twitter. That's a good way to reach me. And I'd be happy to try to direct you to some resources.
Sure. So there's one question from Miguel, and let me give Brent a little bit of breather. Maybe he can have a sip of water, right? Miguel, the question is that, there are many US-based online job employers who prefer paying through alternate modes. What is your advice to them, and why do you think they should use Payoneer?
Okay, so actually that's a great question. We certainly do work with a lot of freelancers and small businesses that want to use Payoneer, but are struggling with completing the other side of the transaction. So we can certainly provide you with more information offline, and we can definitely work with you directly to see how we can remedy that situation.
Got it. So back to you, Brent, and the question is, how is Fiverr protecting their sellers in case of disputes? Because this has happened to the particular freelancer. I have this question for more than once, and where the buyer left the work with a 5-star feedback, and he invested a bunch of hours working on it, but finally the payment was returned back to the buyer because somehow the payment couldn't get processed. This is a question actually for both Miguel and Brent. Maybe Brent can take part of the guarantees that Fiverr provides, and Miguel can take the question around, how does payment get processed, and how do we help sellers? How do you help sellers really make sure that they get paid?
So for my part of that, I would say this does happen, unfortunately, and every case is different. My advice would be to, I've said this a few times about a couple of different things. My customer support team is going to be mad at me, but I think you do need to reach out, obviously, and talk to support on this. But one of the most important things you can do, and this goes back to my presentation, is to make sure that you're communicating very clearly on what is expected up front at the very start of the gig, and to check in and to give the person that's buying milestones. I feel like this is one of those instances where over-communicating could have solved the problem before the problem even existed. So I would really suggest to everyone who's listening in on this to make sure that it's very clear what's being expected. And if you make sure that you're over-communicating, you're very clear, and that is all in the Fiverr app. All of that communication is captured in the Fiverr app. It makes it very easy for our support team to look in there and say, quite clearly the seller is in the right here, the buyer is in the wrong, I am not going to refund this. But you have to, as a smart business person and a smart freelancer, you have to protect yourself, and you have to put all the details and all the communications inside the communication app, inside Fiverr. So that's really that's where it starts.
Got it. The last question for you, Brent, and this is a pretty open-ended question, so feel free to use your experience to talk about it. How do you become a best? Or I'm just going to paraphrase him. What are the best tips to follow to complete 100+ orders in months with all 5 stars? And what is a good? How do you start? And he wants guidance on this. So probably your experience and your guidance to this person.
Was he asking is it completing a high volume? Did you say hundreds of orders?
Yeah, so the question is hundreds of orders in a month and with 5-star reviews, so pretty high bar.
Right, sure. So it's really interesting, and I think it's a great question. There early in the presentation that I made, there was a gentleman named Aliyaan. He's in Pakistan, and if you looked carefully at his reviews, he has 18,000 gigs completed and 5 stars. How can one man have 18,000 gigs completed? And the answer is that Aliyaan has created essentially a studio of freelancers. He organized with his community to band together with some of the top performers, the people that he could find that were exceptionally good. He handles the Fiverr account, and they all together help handle the gigs that come through. He does the communication because his English is very good. He also is sort of the art director in the sense that he makes sure that everything passes his level of his sort of threshold for excellence, and they complete a lot of gigs that way. That is not against the Fiverr terms of service. Creating a studio is, in fact, something we think is extremely interesting and smart, and by doing that, people are creating businesses on Fiverr. So think about partnering. Think about bringing some other people and think about sharing responsibility for getting the gigs done. But ultimately, someone needs to be the gatekeeper of that, needs to be the keeper of the level of quality in the communication. So I would say find the best person capable for that. And that is the way you do high volume.
So Brent, can I just second that as well? I think that's an amazing insight, and I think that is definitely something which will help freelancers level up their business, right? When you start looking and treating freelancing as a business, right? You start banding together, you start providing more services and working with teams. There's only one way to go but up. So I second that, and I think that's an amazing idea to kind of get your business to the next level.
Sure. Thanks, Miguel, and thanks, Brent, for being patient and taking all the questions. Brent did give his email ID out. I just want to make sure that people have our email IDs too. Miguel's ID is, I'm just going to ask Miguel to say it.
Okay.
Miguel can just go ahead and...
Rohit, my email is Miguel, that's MIGUELWA @Payoneer.com.
Thanks, Miguel. And my email ID is ROHITKU@Payoneer.com. Do send in any questions that you may have as afterthoughts or corollaries which we may not be able to take today. We'll be happy to answer them. We will also circulate this to all of you. Before we end the session, I just wanted to take some time out for Brent and Miguel to kind of, pass on a last message, maybe, just a summary of what they think is the right thing for new entrepreneurs or first-time freelancers to do, and some of the questions that came their way. Based on that, if they have any additions to make to what they did earlier. Brent first.
Yeah, so I just want to thank you again for letting me be on this this webinar, and for those of you who are, it's in the evening and on the weekend now, I think it shows a lot of spirit and a lot of intensity to be on the call at all, participating. So you're already taking the right step, thinking about your future and trying to pursue a path. So good for you. I think that's great. I would say, my biggest piece of advice to everybody is always, don't forget the basics. A lot of the things I covered in my presentation were very, very simple, perhaps intuitive, common sense kinds of things, but somehow, I would say the majority of people selling on Fiverr don't do all the basics. So if you stick to the basics, you keep your focus, you keep your quality high, and you make sure you're doing all the right things, you're going to be successful. You're going to actually surpass most of the people on the platform just by doing everything that's simple and known. You don't even have to be exceptionally adept at figuring things out if you just sort of follow the basic guidelines. And then from there, your talent will take you as far as you want to go.
Miguel, last thoughts from you?
So I also wanted to just thank Brent. I thought that his session and his insights were really, really spot on. For me, I'm super excited about working with Fiverr to bring this to Filipino freelancers and, of course, freelancers all over the world. The one piece of advice that I always like to share is to treat freelancing like a business. And that includes looking at the dollars and cents. I think a lot of freelancers, especially those that are living, for example, in the Philippines, get excited about earning dollars, but don't really look at the amount of pesos that they're actually taking home using their current payment provider. So I really encourage you to treat this like a business where every dollar and cent matters. Take a look at the foreign exchange rates, take a look at the fees, and make informed decisions based on your bottom line. So all the best to everyone, whether you are just starting out and you're a newbie or you're an experienced freelancer looking to take the next step up. Congratulations on taking the entrepreneurship journey, and good luck.
Thanks, Miguel. Again, to all the freelancers and entrepreneurs here, thanks for being here. I hope that the session was useful and meaningful to you. We will try and schedule more sessions with Fiverr and us together so that we can cover more specific topics. And we'll try and send a survey to all of you so that we can learn more about what you like and what we can keep as follow-up topics for the next set of webinars, or we can create a series of webinars. So do fill out the survey and let us know about your feedback. Thanks once again. Won't keep you long. Have a great evening. Have a great weekend. And we'll see you on the other side in the next session. Good night, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.